So we've seen that free will is a myth from the perspective of how choices are made. We always choose in accord with our values and beliefs, and yet our values and beliefs are formed in us not by this conscious process of choosing them. Indeed, we cannot change them simply by choosing to change them. Something must change in us, like the growing of a tree, for our values and beliefs to change. We find ourselves with these values and beliefs. Therefore, we have no control ultimately over our choices. But there's a second fundamental reason why free will cannot really be a characteristic that even exists in the world, and that's because it's a logical impossibility. Imagine I told you this. Imagine I said, I have a pet square circle. His name is Squircle. Do you want to see him? All of you would automatically disbelieve me. You wouldn't say, oh, show me Squircle. You wouldn't need to see Squircle. You wouldn't need for me to present evidence for Squircle's existence. Squircle is impossible because there can never be something that's a perfect circle that's a square, and vice versa. The two are in contradiction to each other. That's a self-contradiction. This is what Nietzsche is claiming about free will. It's a contradiction in terms. So why is that the case? Well, again, we have to remember the results that we have from Schopenhauer and philosophy up until this point. Descartes and Aristotle and Augustine and all the medieval philosophers up to early modern philosophy believed in the existence of this ego, this substratum, this substance that lasts over time, and that's called the self. And then this substance undergoes various experiences, but the experiences are not the self. The experiences are what the self experiences. But we saw how there is no substance that lasts over time, that everything changes over time, and that what we call ourself is merely this constant stream of mental states, of consciousness. So then if we were to be beings that choose then, that have free choice, then our previous history cannot determine us. We must come to some kind of point of decision. So here's my history, and now what must happen is when I come to the point of choice, the future is genuinely open. My past doesn't cause my future. The decision itself must cause it. So then, since I am nothing but this conscious activity, then I am this conscious present activity of choosing. And if I am this present conscious activity of choosing, this choosing must be separated from everything that occurred beforehand. Now so we might ask, well, what causes the choice, right? Now we could say previous states, right? In other words, my history of conscious experience determined me to choose it, so that if I knew my past, I would know what I would choose. But then that means I can't but choose otherwise. My previous experiences determine my present conscious choosing, but then it's not free. So then, maybe it's my external history or environment, right, that causes me. When I am presented with these circumstances or situations where I must choose, then the circumstances determine me to choose, or my genetic code determines me to choose, or my parents, or the history of the world from the Big Bang to the present. But then notice this is all determining or causing this me, this present state of choosing, and therefore it's not free either. The only being that can be free is the one who causes their own action, right? I must be the one who chooses, nothing else. But I am that present state of choosing. So thus I only have two other choices. Either this state of choosing, my choice, comes from nothing, it pops from nothing, or the choosing itself, causes itself. Well, something popping from nothing is impossible. From nothing, nothing comes. The minute you have this notion of cause and effect, you cannot say something comes from nothing. Every effect must have a cause. So that's not possible. So we're left with the one choice, that I cause myself. I cause my own choosing. So if I'm free, then I'm the cause of myself. But I want you to think about what that would mean to say, I am the cause of myself. Well, I have a beginning of my existence. In order for me to need a cause, then there must have been a time before I existed, and then my cause brings me into existence. But therefore, my cause must exist before I exist. So if I am my cause, then it follows that I exist before I exist. That, my friend, is a contradiction. Because then I must both exist before I exist and not exist because I needed something to bring me into existence. That's like a square circle. It is like being pregnant and not pregnant at the same time. And so in order to be free, I must be the cause of my choice, but I am my choosing. Therefore, I must cause myself. But therefore, I must exist before myself, which is a contradiction. So free will is impossible, isn't it? Because it requires this, what is called causa sui. In Genealogy of Morals, in section 21, Nietzsche puts it like this. It is the worst myth possible because it's a myth that's impossible. It is the worst myth possible precisely because it's a myth that's impossible. He uses the example of a German fairy tale. A very famous German character in fairy tales was a guy named Captain Munchausen. And Munchausen one day is walking in a swamp and he falls into quicksand, and he has nothing to pull him out of the quicksand, so he's drowning in that quicksand. So as the story goes, Munchausen comes up with a great idea. He has these long mustaches and long hair. So he takes his mustache, ties it together with his hair, and he then pulls himself up out of the swampy quicksand by his own hair. But that's absurd because his hair is sinking too. You need something different to pull yourself out of the swamp of nothingness. Therefore, every choice has a cause, but that cause must be something other than the chooser. And therefore, it follows that there can be no free will. It's a nice fiction. It is a fiction that has created the law system we live by, the Constitution that we hold so dear. All of this depends on this notion of self-choice, doesn't it? The idea that we not only have a right to choose, but you can only have a right to what you can do, what you have a possibility. If I give you the right to make as many square circles as possible, that's just absurd. So if I give you the right to make your own choice, then I'm really just giving you the right to cause yourself. That's a great right to have, if you could have it, but it's impossible. So free will is a myth, and the worst myth, because on this myth is created the whole edifice of the traditional morality. In our next segment, we'll see how what is created, we could live by that lie if that lie forced us to higher levels of existence. If that became the created values that push us on to higher levels of humanity and even beyond humanity to the Übermensch. But Nietzsche is going to argue the fourth myth is that this very traditional morality is what destroys the process of life, and therefore it's the myth that this traditional morality is good for you.